Well, Natalie Gamble is a leading legal expert in fertility cases. I think this will come as a surprise to a lot of people, particularly when you think that mothers that are adopting are entitled to maternity leave, and yet in this situation she wasn't. Is it just a sort of a strange anomaly of the law that we haven't looked into yet?
Absolutely. It was never designed this way. It's just a gap that hasn't been addressed properly, because the rules that are there were designed for women giving birth and then separately for women who were adopting a child. And surrogacy just falls in that gap between the middle where there's no law to provide for it.
So what can they get off to raise their child?
Well, basically, the mother who is the intended mother doesn't have any automatic rights to time off work at all, so nothing equivalent to maternity leave. There are sometimes slightly more restricted rights to things like parental leave, but then that isn't always available immediately and it's often unpaid. So really women are left in the position where they have to negotiate with their employers at their goodwill as to whether they're going to get any time off work at all.
Well, what is maternity leave for? Is it for the actual recovering from the physical exertion of childbirth, or just getting through the first few months of what is a very difficult process?
Well, obviously it's both.
Right.
And, you know, most women, there's a short period of time where you're recovering from giving birth, but you don't have a year off work to do that. The most of the time is there for you to bond with your new child, and that's in the baby's best interests as much as it is in the mother's interests.
And I guess, given that, sometimes for a woman that hasn't carried her own child, it takes even longer to bond, or it's maybe an even more important time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most women who've been through surrogacy, it's never the first choice. They've got a very long history behind them of, you know, maybe lots of miscarriages or lots of failed fertility treatment. So, you know, the baby that's arrived is something they've waited for a very long time. And it's really the final insult to that whole journey and trauma they've had that they then don't have the time off work they would otherwise have had they not had to go through all that.
Anything they can do? Any recourse? Any way they can fight their corner?
Well, there's a case being taken at the moment to the European Court of Justice where a woman's taking her employer to court, but it's untested and it'll take a long time to decide whether the law is discriminatory. So the best advice really for people is to negotiate with their employer and to, you know, hope that they have kind of goodwill and will be a bit flexible.
Appeal to their heart, in other words, Good to speak to
It all
someone.
seems so complex, and I'm glad they've got people like you trying to make it easy for them.
Flagging up the issues, Well, after 7 we've got